everyone, it's Becca at SewDarnTwisted, back for my part 2 tutorial in my little scrap busting project. In the last video, part 1, I showed you how to make this really cute little adornment with either a paperclip fastening or an eyelet and ball pin fastening. Obviously you can choose whichever one you prefer. So for the purposes of using up pretty much the same supplies that I used for this, with just a few extra bits and pieces, and made these little book plaques, which is the one that we're going to be doing today. These are great to get rid of all of your little scrappy bits and pieces, although the one piece of advice I'd always give anybody that's doing paper crafts is do not keep all of your scraps. You will never in a million years use all of your scraps, unless you're like, I don't know, some kind of craft god or something. But most of it, I tend to go through my scraps like once a month, and anything that's smaller than kind of 2-inch square, I'm like, right, nope, that's going to go and be recycled or mulched to make new paper out of, or you know, that kind of thing. But yeah, most of this is dealt with scraps and just some new bits of hardware to make these. So the first thing that you're going to need for this is your cutting mat. I've already cut mine out, but I find these work best if you use like a, you know, the A4 envelopes that have got the card backing, you know, do not bend, that kind of thing, or the really sturdy Amazon envelopes that you get. So this, as you can see, came off one of the envelopes. That's the way the paper is glued onto it. But yeah, these are quite nice and sturdy, and that's what you want for something like this, because ideally they go on the cover, so you don't want them to be very flimsy. And these ones were cut at 5 centimeters. I think this was by 8, yeah, 5 by 8 centimeters. Obviously you can make them bigger or smaller, whatever you want, but remember, if you make them too small, you won't be able to have as many layers before your final piece that you either write or stamp or stick a word that you've got printed out onto it. So just do bear that in mind. I think this is probably the smallest it should go for an actual book plaque, but obviously you can just use it as, you know, normal adornment kind of thing. The second thing you will need is some scraps of fabric. I do recommend having quite a nice kind of heavy, not, you know, like curtain heavy, but just not really thin and, you know, wishy-washy to do your base piece. I recommend using something with a bit more oomph to it, but don't try to use heavy kind of curtain fabric, because you'll have problems trying to glue it around and get corner pieces on if it's too thick. So you want kind of a medium weight fabric, and obviously scraps for doing layering on there as well. So that's the second thing that you're going to need. Then you will need, as I had in the last video, I'm going to use pretty much the same things, embellishments, bits of scrap lace, things like that, really, to decorate them. So let's get those out of the way. You're going to need some split pin paper fasteners. I've got them in 2 different sizes. I've got some really nice little ones in there and some standard size ones here. So yeah, if you're ever looking for what they're called, they are called split pin fasteners. So you're going to want some of those. You're going to want something to poke a hole into a couple of layers of paper or card. I use the pokey tool. It's like an awl, but not quite as savage, because you just want to make a gentle hole. You're not going through a book cover or anything like that, because the split pin doesn't go through the back card, it just goes through these couple of layers here. So you don't need it to be hugely forceful. The next thing you will need is some corners, some corner pieces, obviously in whatever colour you choose. I've got some nice gold ones and silver ones, so depending on what theme you're going for here, get yourself some of those. You're going to need some glue. I'm again using Yoo-hoo because I find it works brilliantly for fabric, and it's so cheap to buy, but it also works really well on paper and basically everything I've tried to glue, embellishments, paper, card, fabrics, this stuff has absolutely nailed it. And I have numerous types of Yoo-hoo. You can get the Yoo-hoo sticks, you can get the twisting glue, which is really good if you're trying to cover a book, because you can have it like that, so it will dispense and smooth it out as you go, rather than having a thin sort of streak going on. So that stuff's really, really good as well. And then this is just the standard one that you see in my dispensers all the time, which is just the standard liquid glue. So yeah, highly recommended. And then you're going to need some tape. I did try this with glue to start with, but trying to get the fabric to stick down on the back on the card, I was getting covered in glue. It was really fiddly, and I thought there's got to be a better way of doing this. Initially I tried the double-sided dispenser tape, but I found it didn't hold the heavier fabrics very well, but I used heavier duty double-sided tape and that worked really well. But you could also use masking tape and tape the fabric down to the back of the card, because maybe in me I like to cover the ugly parts, so you'll just put a piece of card over it anyway, so you wouldn't really see the tape. And you'll need ink in your choice of colour. I'm using Toffee Crunch Memento ink there. Absolutely love it. It's not as heavy as the archival ink, but still enough that you get a nice hint of colour. So let's get started. Now, if you've ever covered your own book cover, you'll find this part really, really easy, but obviously not everybody has. So you need to find yourself a suitable size piece of scrap. That's not going to be big enough. Okay, so let's just cut a little bit out of here. You just need it to be, like when you're doing your book covers, let's just loose that. You just need it to be a little bit bigger on every side. So we'll just use that as a rough guide and trim that out. Okay, throw that to one side. Right, so now you've got that in there. Much the same as a book cover. I don't bother gluing it in to the front. I don't think it's necessary. You can if you want to, but you're not going to see anything really of it anyway. And as long as you do it quite nice and securely with the glue on the back, you shouldn't need to do that anyway, because that will hold it nice and tight. So again, as if you're covering a book, just a little, leave just a little bit at the edge there. Okay, so now double-sided tape. So you can, if you want to, you can just hold it down, even with a bit of the Crafter's Companion, and then just put the masking tape over it. It would be fine, but I'll show you this way, because more people have double-sided tape, I think. So now I've won that argument with the double-sided tape. Let's start by pushing these into place. If you just pull it towards you ever so slightly, just to take up any excess, push that over, and just do that on all four sides. And you should end up with something that looks like that. Now, don't worry if you've got little bits on the corners, because obviously you are going to be putting the edges on anyway. So I don't bother trying to do the proper tuck technique for these. So that's that one all nice. Then you take another piece of card, just any kind of scrap card, And you just basically want to cut that to be slightly less than your plaque. So I'll just give that a... Oh my life, I'm using my fabric scissors again. I should be reported to the craft police. Okay, a little bit further up. To be fair, it doesn't matter if you go a little bit too far, just trim it back down. Yep, okay. Lovely. And now just glue that onto the back. Oh, that's a nice wooden side. I might have to use the wooden side. I say, not that anybody's really going to ever see it, but we'll do it anyway. Okay, so just position that down like that. Give it a good press. And you're ready to start decorating. Okay, so realistically now, this is just a case of finding what you like, how you want yours to look. So I quite like this kind of, it's almost like a gossamer thread lace. I absolutely love it. So let's have a little bit of that at a bit of a jaunty angle, because jaunty angles are fun. Okay, and what I like to do is sort of layer it how I think I might like it, because if you just glue as you go, sometimes you go, oh, I'm not so keen on that now, and then it's too late. So just layer it on dry to start with and see how you feel about it. So I'll do that. Maybe a little bit of Hessian in there. Let's see, let's have a little look. Now I can use my fabric scissors because I'm using fabric rather than fighting with a pair of paper scissors. Okay, so maybe that at the top and that at the bottom. Or there's this really nice kind of flouncy. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with that. So then you want your bits of card that you're going to make the back part here. So I've got on there my base layer, and I've got a layer of this kind of stringy lace, then another layer of fabric, which was this that I just used ink on, and then I've got a book page as the background of that one, or you can just use regular card, whatever you prefer. Okay, so let's cut a piece of this. Didn't make that big enough, did I? Silly. When will I learn to make it bigger than you actually want it to be? Okay, I'm just gonna mess up the edge of this. I do actually have scissors that make it look like it's torn, but for today we're just going to go with this. Lovely. Get rid of that. And so now your piece of card, which again you know needs to just be slightly shorter than the width of your book page. Okay, so then cut that. Okay, oh, that's not quite straight, is it? Mind you, that's implying that I can cut straight to save my life, which I really can't, but we'll manage. Okay, so now you're going to glue down these pieces. So let's go back to your layers. Oh, this stuff is wonderful, but it kind of sticks to everything until you want it to stick to something, and then it goes, no. It's like a petulant teenager. So we're just gonna throw a little bit of glue on there, pop that on, lovely. And if you time it right, you can get your second bit to stick using the same bit of glue. Fab. Okay. Don't know what that is. And then on your Hessian, which has a tendency to fray, so I recommend gluing as close to the edges as you possibly can, which helps to stop it from fraying once it's in place. And then just pop that down. Oh, I've got glue string everywhere. Okay, it's ink time. So grab your trusty ink dauber. Okay, get rid of those now, you don't need them. So now you're just going to put some glue to put these together. Now, because you're going to be going through it with the split pins, I recommend just going around the edge rather than gluing all over the back, because it will make it harder to get your pokey tool through if there's lots of gummy glue in the way. So that's on there nicely. Okay, so now you're going to need a pencil and your pokey tool, and you're just going to make a mark roughly in the center and just in a little bit. Then you're going to pick up the tool that's right next to you and just create a little hole, which of course today it's being very stubborn. There we go. You're just going to create that little hole like that. Obviously, if you're using the small split pins, you only want a tiny hole. If you're using the bigger split pins, make a bigger hole to make it easier to see. I'm using the bigger ones today. So I'm just going to feed that through there, and just before it's all the way through, start to split that and then angle it so that it's hidden like that. Do the same with your second pin. And then split that one. If you find that your card and paper pieces, that it overhangs, you can just fold it backwards on itself and then just give it a really good push down and it'll be fine. So then just push them to get them nicely flattened, and you're ready to glue that onto here. Get a good bit of glue on that, and then position it. So you see you've just got the edges of those other bits just poking through, which is kind of nice, but obviously you can put them further apart if you want more to show. But that is now the base done. So now we're going to put the corner pieces on. Now there is a knack to these, and I see people asking all the time, how do you get them on tightly, how do you get them to close properly, you know, and that kind of thing. And I'm going to show you what I do, which has been pretty foolproof for me. Usually one side of these has a bigger gap than the other side, so if yours do, make sure you put the bigger gap at the back. So to start with, when you put these on, they are obviously very, very loose, and sometimes they seem to be flared, and when you've actually pressed them in place they flare more, but I will show you how to reduce that. So to start with, just get them all in place, and then you're going to need a pair of pliers, preferably flat-nosed. I don't know if they're called snub nose or flat nose, but either way, you want some of those that's got a nice even plate. You don't want to use needle nose pliers because they concentrate too much pressure in one little bit, and that's what causes most people problems with these, is they end up with dents in them. So what you need to do is get a piece of scrap fabric, and you're going to fold that over your corner. Okay, then get your pliers and gently but firmly go all the way around and just apply pressure. Now remember when I said that they start to gape when that happens, so all you need to do there is push with your pliers. For this one you can actually use the needle nose pliers, because that's what I did on my last ones, and just push that closed a little bit, and there you go, that's your first one in. So fabric, gentle press all the way around. That way you're not going to get the imprint of your pliers on the corners, and they will stay nicely closed. I've trapped my lace in that bit, because it's horrible when you use one of these and you realise that you've actually completely crushed it with your pliers, and now it's just got all these little horrible dents in it, and yeah, it's very frustrating when that happens. So there, see, it's nicely square and it's not going anywhere and has no damage. So let's just get that last one on. Little push, little close, done. So now all that's left to do is decorate it however you want to. So I have a mess, apparently, a very creaky chair, some glue, and I think I've got these little ones as well. You can put charms on them, you can just do whatever you want. I got these the other day from the works, beautiful little rose beads. So I'll just have those open. Yeah, you can see they're just really, really cute. So let's get the smaller glue and just put some of that on there, and then just pop those wherever you want them. I have a little one of my little favourite paper flowers. Good Lord. Down in that corner. It's actually that way up if you look. Right in's right. Bigger at the top, smaller at the bottom. So yeah, you can basically put whatever the heck you want on these. One of them, I think I did just like a row of these little kind of pearl garland. Just trying to see if I can get that to focus. But yeah, you know, a row of that looks really nice and effective. You can use, I can't think what these are called, it's completely gone out of my head. But let me show you. Oh my life, my brain is a nightmare. But you can get these and just put a pearl or, you know, something like that into it. They're actually used for jewellery making, but they look really nice, kind of sat on there with a nice big pearl in the middle of it would look really, really cute and effective as well. So yeah, the world is basically your oyster at this point, but for the purposes of the tutorial, I'm going to leave that one there. I hope it all made sense. I hope you found it easy to follow. As always, I would absolutely love it if you were to subscribe. It makes me do a little happy dance in my chair. And if you've got any questions, as always, just leave me a message.